Major U.S. airlines are reducing their flight schedules and revising or withdrawing their profit outlooks for the year. American Airlines pulled its financial guidance for 2025 on Thursday, joining rivals Southwest and Delta in saying the economic outlook was too uncertain to provide a full year forecast. All three airlines cited weakening sales among economy class leisure travelers. There's also increasing concern over the number of travelers visiting the U.S. A combination of President Trump's policies and rhetoric is reportedly turning tourists off from visiting the United States. Now, the U.S. state of California is already feeling the impact of fewer tourists, and vendors who usually cater to travelers have been expressing concern. Joining us now to talk more about tariffs and travel is Michael Taylor. Michael's the Managing Director of Travel, Hospitality, and Retail at J.D. Power. Michael, good to see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about the airlines' earnings, either cutting back or not going to offer their earnings for this year. American Airlines CEO pointing toward unprecedented uncertainties as the reason. We pretty much understand what that means, but kind of walk us through just how bad this is and your take on it.
Well, it's not exactly something that was, a very short-term thing. We've seen a sort of a softening in projected revenues for the airline industry for the last 2, 3, 4 months. We really, I think, come to the end of what's been known as revenge travel. People for the last 4 or 5 years have been exceeding expectations in their thirst for travel, and I just think that's lessening a little bit. Some of the, things that you've mentioned in the previous segments, a little bit of emotional uncertainty is adding to that, and that's probably the reason why most of these earnings forecasts have been withdrawn by the airlines.
You know, polls show that people internationally are not happy with the United States. So let's talk about, will domestic travelers affect this? Or is it going to be the international visitors that simply impact tourism, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry here in the U.S.? And I hear what you're saying about the soft concerns in the previous months, but look, the United States had been flying high in the previous years, and it doesn't take a lot to really turn off people who are going to spend a lot of money.
Right. I was in Ireland all this last week, and everyone I spoke to, and I mean everyone I spoke to, asked me about tariffs and the impact on it, and what was going to happen to the the U.S. economy and the travel economy, because they know me as a travel person in the United States. And yes, it really is. This is really an emotional response. There really isn't any direct tariff that is going to affect the price of a ticket right now. It's going to affect the price and delivery of aircraft, which, of course, affects the long-term expectations of all these airlines. So that's really the biggest reason they've got to kind of pull back on earnings forecasts. But as far as the ticket price, really there isn't. It's really the emotional impact of, do I want to travel to the United States because I'm a little annoyed with this kind of tariff activity. And certainly our president hasn't done an awful lot to endear himself to our friends north of the border either. They are rather sensitive. I live close to the Canadian border, and I hear that an awful lot. So it's really an emotional response at this point, and it's the end of that revenge travel period that we've seen. The airlines have done had some fantastic earnings post-COVID, and that's just simply one of the cycles that we're kind of is being impacted right now, and being maybe a little exacerbated by the tariff talk.
Which brings the question, how long can airlines sustain themselves if what they believe could happen happens and travel trends keep going down? A friend of mine recently traveled from Montreal to Los Angeles. She sent me a photo from inside the plane on the way back home. That aircraft was almost empty.
And mine was too last night when I flew in from Ireland, which is really unusual. But for the previous 3 or 4 years, I'd say the load factor, the percentage of seats being filled in aircraft out of the New York market where I live, was closer to 90, 95% for most of the flights. So this is sort of a regression to the mean or so. And if you ask how long they can last, they can really last quite a long time. The biggest problem we have at the moment is the ability for the airlines to put enough aircraft in the air to meet the most economical demand for travel routes, and that's really affecting their long-term earnings. And they were playing it close to the vest in the last few years. And again, this tariff talks and some of the cancellations and some of the slowdowns in aircraft delivery are what's really driving this uncertainty quite a bit. But yes, I would say that it is going to affect it quite a bit. But I believe they'll be able to recover within 6 months. Again, the goal here politically in the United States is Trump wants a deal. He doesn't necessarily want to institute tariffs all over the place. He wants to do a deal. That's what he's known for. That's his reputation for his whole life. And this is how he's going about it.
Okay, what if that doesn't work? And we know that international travelers are not happy. What's this going to do long term? What are you hearing from travel companies? And what are you hearing about the airlines themselves? They can't be happy with the way things are going.
No one is, because no one knows exactly what's going to happen. It's just as, I think uncertainty is probably a word that's been used 20 times on the broadcast tonight, and that's really what's driving all this. People don't know what is going to happen. How are people going to react? Again, right now for the traveler, it's just simply an emotional reaction. Do I want to travel to a foreign country? Do I want to come to the United States? How do I want to get there? And that is affecting the demand. It's not necessarily the structural prices, the price of fuel, the price of a seat, or anything like that that's driving it. From a physical sense, it's more of an emotional thing. Do I want to do this at this point? And again, we've come off a period of just extraordinary demand where it's been just unprecedented and unforeseen. So they've had a few good years. Now they're going to have a few lean months probably. And hopefully all this will resolve itself within by the end of the year. That's at least what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, there's a lot of hope out there, but more uncertainty. Okay, Michael, thank you so much. We appreciate your take on this, and hope you had a great time in Ireland.
I did. Thank you, Sean.
Okay. And that's it for this edition of On the Move. But make sure to check out other special content that you can find on our website, cgtn.com.